Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post these videos up when I have the time and think about it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They're international. There's over 30,000 therapists working for them. I have had great feedback from people using them. So thank you, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. Okay. Whew, so much to talk about today. So, first one is the current event. So this one is going to be a trigger warning. I am going to discuss the Epstein files for a brief moment, and here is the reason why. Hello, everybody. Okay. Nobody's talking to the victims. Nobody's talking to the victims. Nobody's asking them. Nobody's asking the hard questions. Why? Well, think about it. When we were being abused by our family of origin, by a romantic partner, by a friend, by a boss, whatever, did anyone really want to know the hard answers? Did anyone really want to believe us? So I have worked with targets of sexual abuse. I have worked with sex trafficking victims. I have. A lot of them ended up at the homeless shelter. Here's something they're not talking about. Anyone who is innocent would want the list of whoever the clients were released. Republican, Democrat, I don't care. If they are a pedophile, they get to go bye-bye and they get to face the consequences of their actions, okay? The fact that any of these people are protecting those people says to me this. The names in that list, the names connected to Epstein are powerful. They are probably current and former government officials, Republican, Democrat, congressmen, representatives, high-ranking. That would be my guess. Also, probably celebrities, etc. They don't want the truth to come out. Now, here's something that nobody is talking about. Of those 1,000 plus victims of Epstein's that were trafficked, that were children as young as 12, how many of those girls, after being raped multiple times, got pregnant, had to have abortions? How many of those names connected to Epstein base their persona, their political persona, on being a good Christian congressman and a good Christian representative and a good Christian whatever, and is against abortion? But yet those girls were forced to have abortions. This is something that is part and parcel of the sex industry. It goes back as time immemorial. Roman times, yeah. Tombstone, you betcha. If you ever tour Tombstone, they talk about how the women would give themselves abortions when they got pregnant, and a lot of them died because, 1800s, not very hygienic, etc. It's so release the names. Release the names, whether they are Democratic or Republican. They need to be outed. They need to be shamed. They need to face justice. And those 1,000 victims who were children as young as 12, who were raped repeatedly by Giselle Maxwell, who, by the way, just got to a cushy little minimum security jail in Texas. Meanwhile, people who are residents of the United States are being shipped off to alligator Auschwitz. Anybody else see a problem with this? I sure as hell do. And people are like, oh, well, this is political. This isn't psychological. Yeah, it is psychological. You damn straight it's psychological. What do you think this does to the victims when nobody talks to them? Nobody asks them. Nobody wants to know the hard answers to the hard questions. How does that make us feel? Unheard, unbelieved, crazy, etc. Why do you think Virginia Giuff, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, she was one of the victims, killed herself? Because she was not believed, she was receiving death threats, and she was scared for herself and her family. Talk to the victims. Talk to them. Get names. Go after them. That's what a good person would do. Anybody who is protecting any of those names, I don't care who they are, I don't care. Democrat, Republican, I don't care. They're a pedophile. They were abusing 12-year-olds who are children. Children, not psychologically capable of handling trauma, such as rape or abortion, but were forced to. Because somebody like Epstein and Giselle, whatever the hell that bitch's name is, got them into it. She has been also accused of raping multiple times these victims. She's not innocent. She's a trafficker. She's a monster. She does not deserve a minimum security prison. I don't think she deserves Auschwitz, alligator Auschwitz either. Nobody does. But this is a problem in this country that we do not listen to the victims. We do not listen to those who have been abused. We don't believe them. We don't want to hear it. Why? Because it's an inconvenient, uncomfortable truth. Start talking to them. Start asking. Get names. Go after them. Go after them. Absolutely. Do not protect pedophiles. Male, female, GOP, Democrat, I don't care. Do not protect them. They are going to continue, and I'm sure they have, abusing children. They didn't stop just because Epstein got caught and suicided. They didn't stop. Those types of people, pedophiles like that, do not stop. They continue. They just get sneakier about it. So, my whole point of this is there's a reason why this list is not being released. There is a reason why there are certain members of Congress fighting tooth and nail not to have it released, because there are current and former members on there. Guarantee it. Or buddies of theirs that are famous. Guarantee it. So you might want to start putting pressure on your senators and your representatives and maybe your local media as to why this needs to be publicized. This is not just about, oh, they were pedophiles. Oh, no, the victims are being ignored. The victims were forced to do things, heinous things that they didn't want to have to do, being raped, having abortions, etc., to survive because they were threatened. Do you see where I'm going with that? And all of these people in a position of power are being protected. How is that okay? How is that okay? That sends absolutely the wrong message about this country and about our morals. So contact whoever you need to. Scream as loud as you need to. Point it out as often as you need to, that the very people who are protecting these people are probably on that list, and or know somebody on that list, and or are basing their political persona on being good little Christians who are against abortion, yet they forced these girls to be raped and to have abortions. So it is up to us, guys, to push the issue. This is not okay on any level. 12 years old is not psychologically able to deal with this kind of trauma. This is why some of them have died. This is why some of them have overdosed. If you go and you look at the list of the victims, it'll say how they died. Suicide, overdose, etc. Because it's too much and it should never have happened. And furthermore, none of these people should be protected. None of them. I don't care who they are. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. They need to be exposed and they need to be expunged. They need to be taken out. Period. They should not be serving the public, because they're not serving the public. They're serving their own ego. Get rid of them. Go after them. They don't deserve anonymity. You abuse a child, you rape a child, you force a child to have an abortion, you deserve the shame that is going to be flung at you. So there it is. And do you want my other opinion on this? A lot of those people, narcissists. Absolutely. Narcissists view women, boys, as objects. They're objects to be used. They don't ever think about how this is going to harm that child, because to them, that child is genitals and that's it. A way to get their pleasure. That's it. They don't ever think about what is going to happen to that kid. They have no empathy. None. Zip, zero, zilch, nada. You are dealing with a true dark triad. Those people on that list are dark triads, every single last mother clucking one of them. And they have no business getting tax dollars to pay their salary. How dare they? How effing dare they? Go get them. Go get them. Get the names. Out them. Expose them for the monsters that they are. Here endeth the rant. Okay. So, learned behaviors that we have gotten from our disordered parents. There's so many. So, overt narcissists. Overt narcissists are the ones that are me, I, more my genitals, basically. So I did this. I'm great. I tell me, I. It's all I. Okay. So if you were raised by an overt narcissist, you're going to learn empathy is not a good thing. It's going to get you hurt. So we tend to dissociate. We tend to detach. We tend to have very, what's the word I'm looking for? Attachment disorders. You know, it's hard for us to attach to other people. We're going to have some behaviors that were learned. So here's the good news. All of the things I'm going to talk about are learned. We don't pop out of the womb completely personality disordered. Now, is there a genetic component to it? Yes, I think so. Nature, nurture, a little from column A, a little from column B, you betcha. But we don't pop out of the womb being complete dark triads. That has to be taught. And it also is a choice to a certain extent because they will continue doing the wrong thing even after it's clear that it is the wrong thing. And they will dig their heels in and double down on it to prove that it's not the wrong thing, only proving more that it is, in fact, the wrong thing. So, narcissists, overt narcissists, are very loud, very vocal. They do not value intimacy. They do not value emotions at all, period, unless it's an emotion they want you to have. So we become blunted. We learn not to laugh really loud or not to cry. So that one was one for me, is not crying. I didn't cry for the first 20 years of my life. Seriously, I just didn't. It wasn't safe. After that, though, geez Louise. So anyway, yeah, crying is great. I love crying. Crying is cathartic and it's a good thing, and relearn how to do it. And we'll talk more about that. So, overt narcissists are all that. Covert narcissists play the victim like nobody's business. You never right, you never cool. I did all of this for you. And so, what do we learn from that? We learn to be the victim. And that comes back and bites us in the ass because we become, how to explain this? We become overly dependent. We become infantilized. So they infantilize us. So both the overt and the covert and the borderline, if they don't take care of it, infantilize their children. So what is infantilization? Big word. Infantilization. Is when they take your agency away from you. You are basically told, no, you can't do it. You're incompetent. I'll do it for you. Okay, that's a lot of parents do that. They step in, they do the homework because they want the kid to get an A, because God forbid their kid couldn't not get an A. They have to have the perfect child. So they'll do it for the kid. So the kid never learns how to do math, for example, or never learns how to balance a checkbook or do whatever they need to. A checkbook. Nobody has checkbooks anymore. Dear God. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So they do things to take your agency away from you. A lot of these narcissistic and borderline parents basically tell the kid they're stupid, which is not true, incompetent, which is also not true, and they don't allow the kid to learn how to drive. They never give the child the confidence to learn how to drive, and that's on purpose. Do you know how many younger people I deal with that were told that they couldn't drive or that it was so dangerous they shouldn't drive by these narcissistic and disordered parents? Because the parents were trying to hobble them to keep them at home so they could continue to abuse the living crap out of them. That is why they do that. So, all right. So let me go through a couple of lists that I pulled up. Okay. What it's like having a parent with borderline personality disorder. Okay. It's very difficult because they're constantly taking everything personally. Everything is a shame. So, people with borderline personality disorder, it is based in trauma of their own. Okay. They have their own trauma, but they never dealt with it and they never got the coping skills to deal with it. So, what they hand down to their kids is toxic shame. Everything that comes out of their mouth is control and toxic shame because they're trying to stay safe. I don't approve of it, but I'm trying to explain to you what we got handed from these parents. So, when somebody's got borderline personality disorder, it's based in trauma and it's trauma that was never dealt with. And it's trauma that now has turned into toxic shame. People with borderline personality disorder take everything intensely personal, and it is not. So they will teach their kids that everyone's watching them. There's a little bit of paranoia involved in this, that everyone's watching them and everyone's judging them. And, you can't do this and you can't do that because people are watching and people are judging you. No, actually, people are not. People are so self-absorbed, they don't care. So there's not this real concern about being judged. Now, are we judged on an everyday basis? Yes. But if your self-esteem is good, you get to the point where you consider the source and you either go, I need to take that into consideration. Maybe that is something I need to work on. Or you go, oh, dear Lord, really? You are going to judge me. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Do you see where I'm going with that? So there is this sense of paranoia, this sense of being judged, a lot of toxic shame shoved into our space. That comes back and bites us in the ass because then we very much get the message that everything is a personal attack. How many of us got that message? And then we go into a relationship and, something is said and we take it absolutely personally as if it was a personal attack. That is a great way to blow up a relationship. So that is a behavior that is learned. It is learned. Not everything is a personal attack. Now, coming from your disordered parent, yeah, probably was. That was probably personal. You betcha. But coming from somebody that you love, that respects you, that you respect them, probably not. Coming from a total stranger, probably not. People with borderline personality disorder, if they do not handle the disordered thinking, the eye for an eye, the paranoia, the everything's personal, if they do not get it handled, somebody could be walking down the street and be frowning, and they will make it about them as opposed to this person just got really bad news and they're trying to process it. Total stranger, but they made it personal. So that is a behavior that we need to unlearn. Not everything is personal. Now, some things are personal. Absolutely. If somebody is like in your face attacking you verbally, yeah, that's personal. You betcha. You know, but generally it's like somebody walking down the street frowning, that's not personal. That's their issue. God bless them. Hope they're having a better day. And you go on about your day. But I've had clients with borderline that will absolutely, their entire day will be ruined because somebody frowned at them, because they made it about them, because of the shame, because that got shoved into their space when they were very tiny. And when we're very small, when we're young, little kids don't know not to take things personally. So, Inner Child Workbook, Catherine Taylor, Self-Esteem Workbook, Glenn Schiraldi, CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, Stop Walking on Eggshells by Randy Krieger. A lot of this stuff, a lot of these behaviors, not even yours. They're your disordered parent. So you got to start separating this stuff out. Okay. All right. Continuing on with the borderline toxic shame, the codependency trap. Because of their severe fear of abandonment, a parent with BPD is threatened when you need to grow and express your individuality. So this is common in both narcissism and BPD. When you start getting your own personality and your own ideas, your own opinions of what you want and what you don't want, oh my God, that is when they will hobble you. That is when they will try to infantilize you, to keep you unable to grow. You're growing. You're recognizing the pink elephant taking a crap in the corner of the living room is insanely, intensely threatening to somebody with BPD if they are disordered and have not gotten help. I want to make that very clear. This is when they start going down the dark side. So it is very threatening, and they will infantilize that child, like not teaching them how to drive, not encouraging them to drive, not encouraging them to get their own apartment, not encouraging them to go to college, not encouraging them to get a job, not encouraging them. Do you see where I'm going with that? Not letting them balance their own books, not letting them go out and try new things, or constantly calling them all the time when they're out with their friends, being a normal teenager or being a normal young adult. So they will make that person feel incapable, infantilized, unable, or watched all the time. Not good. So, especially when the kid starts recognizing the behavior and starts becoming a scapegoat. So, that is all learned too. Disordered parents do not want us recognizing the elephant taking a crap in the corner of the living room, and that elephant being them and their disorder and how dysfunctional it is. So the other behavior that disordered parents will do, not just borderline, is that they will try to normalize the insanity. That messes us up so badly. I cannot tell you the number of clients I have had that when they tell me their family situation and I'm like, that's not healthy, right? You get that most people don't do that, right? No, I thought everybody did that. That's what my mom told me. My mom told me every family was this way. Nope. So they normalize abuse. They normalize crazy thinking. They normalize taking things personally. They normalize being paranoid. They normalize you not doing for yourself. They normalize all the things that should never be normalized. Now, narcissists will normalize cruelty. Oh, that's normal. Every family does that. Every family talks to their kids like this. Every family hits their kids like this. They try to normalize it so that we believe that we're the ones that are wrong by saying, hey, don't hit me. Hey, don't call me stupid. Do you see where I'm going with that? They normalize the crazy, and that's not okay. And we have to stop making excuses for them and making excuses for the behavior. That's another learned behavior we get, is that we are desperate to normalize how our parents were. When I realized that my dad was full goose bozo and my mom wasn't too far behind, that was so hard. It was because I desperately wanted at least one of them to be on my side, and neither one of them were. And that took a lot of work to just be like, stop making excuses. Don't excuse him. Nope. Nope. That's not normal. So we've got to get to the point where we recognize what is, not what we wish. That's magic thinking. That's another learned behavior. Abusers always invest in magic thinking. Well, someday we'll do this. Someday we'll do that. Future faking. That's magic thinking. That's what they teach us. Oh, it's going to get better. Really? How many years has it been now? Do you see where I'm going with that? So you've got to be very careful of the magic thinking, the future faking, it's not as minimizing is what we learn from them, because they tell us it's not as bad as it really is. My mother used to do that all the time. Well, every family is like ours. I think a lot of families are like ours, but not every family. Thank you, Jesus and Buddha and Bufa Baba and whoever else. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So they normalize it. They try to tell us that everyone is like that. No, it's not. You know why they do that? Because they can't handle the idea that they're living in a dysfunctional world, because then they'd have to do something about it. And a lot of our parents were not emotionally capable, didn't have the tools, didn't have the support or the broadband width to do it. So it would mean having to do something, having to leave, having to get therapy, having to confront the abuser. And they didn't want to do it because it was scary, because their inner child was running the show. Did I mention that? Have I mentioned how much the inner child runs the show? All right, let's get back to, so you try to establish a new, healthy, intimate relationship with a romantic partner, and they may do whatever it takes to stop it, either blatantly banning it or subtly disapproving of it. My mother used to follow me around on dates, and if she caught me kissing the guy, she'd show up at my window. I know. And then people wonder why I learned how to drive like Mario Andretti. It's because I needed to shake her so I could go have a normal teenage life. Thank you very much. So yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy. They're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Seriously, there's just no nice way to say it. So, um, yeah, they will trap you in a codependent relationship all of your life, being made to put their needs before yours. And that, if you ever saw the movie, and it's an old movie, and I'm going to reference it, it's called Like Water for Chocolate. It's an old movie. It's in Spanish. Get the ones with the subtitles. Don't get the dubbed one. I hate dubbed. Oh God, hate dubbed, because the voice actors never sound like they should. So anyway, get the one where you can do the subtitles. Like Water for Chocolate. And so what the mother did is that every generation, the youngest child, girl, had to take care of the mom. Had to. No choice. Couldn't marry, couldn't go off and have a career, couldn't be happy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Had to. That movie, oh my God, I think I spent most of the movie screaming at the screen. I was so angry because it reminded me of so many people, my mom included, my grandmother especially. That was her attitude. So, like Water for Chocolate. I don't even know who did it, but it's like really old. It was like 1990s. If you can find it, go find it, rent it, watch it if you can. Rent it. Do we even have rental things? Stream it, I guess. I don't know. If you can find it, it's a great movie. And it exemplifies what I'm talking about. It exemplifies that you owe me. This is how it's always been done. You will take care of me. Very codependent. Very codependent. Identity confusion. They act as if you're an extension of them. Now that goes for both borderline and narcissists. You must become them. You must be them. You must make them happy. You must, for example, my dad's dad, my grandfather, came from, so my dad was the last one. So he was the 8th generation of attorneys. And he wanted one of us to become an attorney. Now, on hindsight, I'm thinking I should have become an attorney because I really do enjoy the law and I enjoy all the cases and I like listening to all the, forensics and things like that. But I decided to do this instead. I wanted to be an actor first, and I did that because it was fun and it was creative and I enjoyed it, and he had a fit. It's like, take that, Dad, go to LA. But and then I was like, no, I want to help people. So that's when I became a counselor. But he wanted one of us to continue on the tradition of being a lawyer. None of us wanted to be a lawyer, really, because of him, because he was so miserable. Every night he came home and said how miserable he was, but he wanted one of us to continue the tradition of being miserable. No, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, if I want to go back and study law now, just for fun, I think I would, just because I find it fascinating. But the way he set it up, it was like, it was this punishment. No, thank you. But that's what narcissists do. You have to continue the tradition. The family name must continue on. Why? As soon as I got married, I ditched my maiden name. I was like, bye-bye, bye-bye, y'all crazy, bye-bye, have fun, bye-bye. Because I would, run into people and they'd ask, oh, you look like so-and-so. Are you so-and-so? Because that was the name of my book. What's wrong with your dad? Are you so-and-so's daughter? Yeah, I am. And, oh, Lord, what's wrong with your dad? Yeah, I'd have to put up with that. So that's why I ditched my maiden name, because it was like, I want nothing to do with you. Y'all are crazy. Bye-bye. So anyway, so forcing you to be them, forcing you into a career that you don't want, not allowing you to develop as an independent person and find out your strengths and your weaknesses and things like that. That's what they do. And they cause us to question. Does this sound familiar? Question who we are, question what we're thinking, question our being, question our everything. They don't allow us to have other ideas or thoughts. And so we get stuck with self-doubt. That is a learned behavior. That is a learned behavior. This is why it's so vital to work on your self-esteem. CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi, Facing Codependency by Pia Melody. Figure out who you are and what you want. You are important. Your thoughts are important. Your way of being is important. Your hobbies are important. The things you love are important. They are. That's what makes you you. So go be you. Don't be them. They were jerks. Go be you. So, okay, back to this. Shunned emotional development. Even though they were highly turbulent, ironically, your parent with BPD or narcissism may be terrified of conflicts. They tend to take everything personally. We talked about that, avoiding conflict. So, avoiding conflicts is a learned behavior. We think of conflicts as something horrible. Why? Because either from a borderline's perspective, you're going to be abandoned, which is what they always assume, or from a narcissist's perspective, it's going to be all out war. And they love it. Narcissists love to have all out war as long as they win. So we learn very quickly not to confront, because either the borderline parent would break into a million tears, you're going to leave me, why don't you love me, that whole thing. Or the narcissistic parent would be like, yeah, let's bring it, come on, I'll take you on, and then make sure it's scorched earth. So, and you quickly learn, it's like, okay, well, that's not going to work. So we start avoiding conflict. It doesn't work, guys. Conflict is only conflict if you're dealing with a disordered person. Conflict is otherwise known as disagreeing. And if you're dealing with somebody normal, healthy, thank you very much, there's going to be a discussion, not an argument, not scorched earth, not a million tears. It's going to be like, okay, here's your point of view. Here's what I'm hearing you say. Here's my point of view. Here's what you're hearing me say. Okay, can we find some middle ground? That's normal. That's healthy. That's what healthy adults do. But because you're dealing with two people, either a borderline or a narcissist, they are literally operating on an emotional level of a 2-year-old on a good day if the wind is blowing in the right direction. Okay? They are not dealing as adults. And 2-year-olds have temper tantrums. 2-year-olds break into a million tears. 2-year-olds will do and say whatever they need to in order to be right and win. Do you see where I'm going with that? Very manipulative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they view disagreement as the end of the world. They don't view it as a growing opportunity. That's how you got to reframe that one. That's a learned behavior. Disagreements are an opportunity to understand your partner or whoever you're talking to better. It doesn't do any good to avoid disagreements. In fact, it's better to invite them and be like, let's play with this. Let's figure out where you're coming from and where I'm coming from. Let me make sure, using reflective listening. Okay, I'm hearing you say this. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, well, let me give you my point of view. And then they say, okay, I'm hearing you say that. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, well, let's find some common ground. That's how adults do it. Narcissists are not adults. Borderlines, not adults. So that's why we learn avoidant behavior, because we don't have the coping skills to learn how to deal with the uncomfortableness, and that's really what it is, uncomfortableness of disagreeing, because they can't deal with it. Opposing views are not allowed because it's uncomfortable, and they don't like being uncomfortable. That's what being about an adult is all about, is you welcome the uncomfortable feelings. Ooh, this is a little uncomfortable. Well, let's work through it. And then you work through it and you get to the other side and it's so much better. But if you avoid it, it's like sweeping it under the rug, and pretty soon you got a lumpy rug and you can't clean it because there's so much dirt under it. Do you dig where I'm going with that? So that behavior has to be undone. That is a learned behavior. Okay, continuing on. All right. So narcissistic parents, you find it difficult to take care of your own needs. They have to come first. You find it difficult to create healthy boundaries. Narcissists do not have boundaries, and they resent the hell out of your boundaries. 100%. 100%. When I finally started drawing boundaries with my mom, I wouldn't tell her where I was going or who I was seeing. I would just go off for a weekend with my boyfriend, and and she couldn't get a hold of me. I got, this is going to show how old I am. I had an answering machine, right? And she would just call that answering machine over and 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 over, because her anxiety level was obviously up here, and she wanted to know where I was and what I was doing and who I was with. And I was in my 20s at that time. So it was kind of like, nope, you can talk to the answering machine and I will call you when I feel like it. So that's a boundary, and they don't like it. They don't like it because now they have to sit with their own uncomfortableness, their own anxiety, their own whatever weird thoughts, disordered thinking is going on in their own heads. Boundaries are huge. Self-esteem is huge. Facing Codependency by Pia Mellody, that's going to help with the boundaries. The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker, that's going to help with the boundaries. Boundaries are what you need. Having no boundaries and allowing them to cross it is a learned behavior. Not only do they cross it, we learn that everybody gets to cross it. And when we start drawing boundaries, they don't like it. And we're a little afraid of that conflict. But you know what? That's growth. That is growth when you can say, nope, and I mean it. I'm walking away now. This is a boundary. Respect it or get out of my life. There we go. Boom. Done. That's growth. Does that make sense? Okay, getting back to this and then we'll get to the questions. Constantly people pleasing, showing narcissistic traits to others. So it's learned, being kind of oblivious, not being in the moment, not really paying attention to other people's emotions or feelings. How they treat others the way that their parents treated them. So traits of that kind of thing. Depression, anxiety, CPTSD, all of those lovely things we inherit from disordered parents. Yay. So there is that. Let me get to this one. Okay, insecure attachment style. We talked about that. Expressing emotions. Sometimes we learn that we don't know how to deal with our own emotions because nobody's taught us. Because we either had a parent that was raging, like a narcissist, or we had a parent that was emotionally unstable, happy 1 second, crying the next, okay the next, angry the next, and not really making much sense. Very emotionally dysregulated. That's borderline. So we don't really learn how to cope with the emotions, anger, sadness, hurt, fear, or we don't know how to recognize the emotions in ourselves, let alone anybody else. So that's why it's important to get with a good trauma therapist and start playing with your emotions, recognize them. So what I would do when I realized it wasn't okay for me to cry, I would go rent the saddest movie, or I would go find the music that would just bring me to tears. And I would just allow myself to cry. And I kept reminding myself, I'm safe. It's okay. This is normal. This is what healthy people do. And it's the same thing with anger. It's the same thing with anger. Get a punching bag. I'm not even kidding you. Get a punching bag and go to town on it. It feels so good. Oh my God. I broke my punching bag because I hit it so much. So anyway, that is awesome to recognize what you're feeling and also recognize what drives the emotions. So anger is a bodyguard of the softer emotions. Always underneath, there's either going to be sadness, fear, or hurt. One of the three. So if you can get through the anger and figure out what's driving the anger, then you can get to what's really going on. But abusers don't ever want us to know what's really going on, which is why it's so important for you to figure out, what are you feeling? Where do you feel it in your body? What can you do with it? Writing letters is great. Getting a punching bag is great. Listening to sad music is great. Writing a letter for yourself is great. Do those things. Start practicing emotions. Okay. Self-harm or substance abuse. My dad was an alcoholic and opiate addict. So his thing when he came home is he immediately would go to the bar, because we had a bar in our house, and he would pour himself a drink and just sit there and, watch the evening news and talk about how horrible the world was, because he was a real happy guy. So yeah, so we learn that, we can make ourselves feel better if we drink or drug. That's why so many children of abusive parents have addiction issues. Why? Because we had a lot of trauma and nobody taught us how to deal with it. Or they blamed us and said it was all our fault that they were the way they were. They're the adult, you're the kid. Nope, don't think so. So again, trauma therapist, hugely important. Watching your consumption of mind-altering drugs and alcohol, really important. If you find that you're starting to like it too much, or you need it, or you think about it all the time, you definitely want to talk to your therapist about that. That's a learned behavior. That is a learned behavior. In working in the homeless shelter, a lot of the times working with the addicts in my group, their family of origins were abusive. And this is how they learned how to cope with the pain or the anger or the sadness or the rejection or the whatever. So this is why therapy is so hugely important. Please go take care of yourself. Do not rely on a bottle. Do not rely on pills. Do not rely on drugs and alcohol. You got to rely on you, and your higher power. So whatever that higher power is, could be the tree outdoors. I don't care. But you got to take care of yourself, because that is a learned behavior. So there is that. Okay, false dependency, we talked about that. Overly dependent on the parents' okay, so something that I have seen a lot is the parent, and I swear to God, I'll shut up and answer questions in just a second. The parents will not only hobble the kids, but they only pay attention to the kid if the kid is in danger or in trouble. So if the kid is in some sort of trouble, the parent will then suddenly swoop in and be the savior and save them. Okay. That's a learned behavior. Playing the victim. Okay. That comes from, overt, covert, borderline, the whole thing. So I had one client a long time ago be like, oh my God, I just realized why I keep sabotaging myself. It's because I want my mom and dad to save me. I want them to show that they love me. And so I keep doing things needing their help, even though they won't help me. And it was interesting because they did this behavior over and over and over and over, which is, not healthy. So once that breakthrough came, then they were able to see the pattern of, oh, I get kudos when I am failing, but not when I'm succeeding. So the inner child was running the show and causing them to sabotage so that mom and dad would swoop in and show that they loved them, even though it wasn't really love. Do you see where I'm going with that? So that is a behavior to really, really watch out for. If you are constantly self-sabotaging, if you are constantly, I can't do this on my own. I need a savior. I need a hero. How old are you? How old are you? And who do you want to save you? Because it ain't going to be your abusive parents. Let me just be clear. So there is that. Okay. Social isolation. Did I even say that right? No. Social isolation. Woo! Put a zation in there that didn't need to be there. Intergenerational trauma, it can be passed down. Absolutely. If we are not aware of these behaviors, we absolutely will pass them down to our kids, to our grandkids, etc. That's why you got to break the generational trauma. You got to start working on all of these issues and not avoid them and not run away from them. It's okay to deal with them. Okay, one more, and then I swear we'll get to the questions. Okay, so self-awareness, setting boundaries, getting a good therapist, building a support system, mindfulness, like nobody's business. Work the books that I recommend. They will help you. Work them with your therapist. If you're having a hard time doing them on your own, because a lot of them are triggering, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. Self-esteem workbook, which sounds innocuous enough, can be triggering, especially if we got the message it's not okay to succeed. Huh? Isn't that interesting? So you start working on yourself, and pretty soon that little inner critic goes, oh, you can't be nice to you. You can't say nice things. How dare you? Da, 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 da. You can't be better than your mom and dad. What? Thank you for playing. Go pound sand. Why? Because you say so. You're the boss. This is not the boss of you. You are the boss of you, not this. So replace it with positive. It's okay for me to succeed. It's okay. You got to be very conscious of what you are telling yourself. Those are all learned behaviors. What we heard our parents say out loud becomes our internal critic. Let me say that again. What we heard our parents say out loud, either implicitly or explicitly, becomes our internal critic. So if they didn't want you to succeed and you could just tell, they didn't even have to say it, you could just tell, that becomes your internal critic. If they called you stupid, that becomes your internal critic. Watch how you talk to your kids. Watch how you talk to yourself. Do not accept or allow anything less than, I love you, good job, keep going. Oops, you screwed up. Okay, make amends, forgive yourself, move on. Okay, we're good. Do not accept anything less than that. If it's mean, if it's cruel, if it's nasty, if it's vicious, that is learned behavior. That is not yours. We don't pop out of the womb telling ourselves we're stupid. Somebody has to teach us that. You tell it, thank you very much for your input. Go pound sand. Why? Because I'm the boss and I get to treat myself well. Why? Because I effing say so. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Because that is your parents' voice, not yours. Find your voice. Your voice is the cheerleader. Your voice is the one that's like, go you. Yeah, good job. Keep going. Okay, you screwed up. Make amends. Okay, good, you did. Forgive yourself. Okay, move on. Do you see where I'm going with that? CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. That can be triggering as well because you're dealing with the trauma, and that's okay. That's what needs to be dealt with. Stop avoiding. Stop avoiding. Facing Codependency and the my brain just left the room. Facing Codependency by Pia Melody and the one by Harriet Breaker. Yeah, brain gone. Anyway, those two, that can be triggering as well because now you're confronting all of the boundary breaking, all of them crossing boundaries, you being a caretaker, et cetera, et cetera. It's okay to not be a caretaker. It's okay to take care of yourself. You are getting rid of, you're smashing those generational traumas. Do it. Is it going to be a little scary? You betcha. Inner Child Workbook, Catherine Taylor, or Regaining the Inner Child by Lucia Cappuccioni. Either one of those can be triggering. Why? Because now you're acknowledging your inner child. Hi, little one. Guess what? I'm not going to let you run the show anymore, but I am going to protect you. So let's talk. So, yeah, you want to work on all of that and just don't stop. Don't stop. A lot of times clients self-sabotage because when they get scared or they get threatened or they get the inner critic coming up or they're afraid of the parent somehow finding out that they're working on themselves, they'll just stop. And that is really the only way to fail is to just stop. So keep going. Keep going. It's not as bad and not as scary as you think it is. And it's so funny because when I start working the books with people and we get through the chapters, they're like, well, I don't know why I was so freaked out. It's not as bad as I thought. It's actually kind of fun. Yes! Yes! Self-exploration is awesome because you gain your own strength back, you gain your own power back, and you have the ability to say no and mean it. Damn, that is good living right there. So anyway, all right. So that is the learned behaviors. That is what we can do to stop them. Recognize them is half the battle. Write them down, journal, put the learned behaviors in a column, and then put how you're going to challenge them in the next column. And then follow through. Mirror work like a boss. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? You're not your mom. You don't have to act like her. It's okay. Or hi, little one. Hi, little inner child. I know you're freaking out because, we're doing things differently, but you know what? It's okay. And I'm right here. That's another way to do it. So mirror work, journaling, writing and burning, all of that fun stuff. Work the workbooks. There we go. Okay, let's go to questions. All right. What do you do if the narcissist's mom's lawyer is probably a narcissist too? My dad, sister, my mom, and I have court in 4 days. If you have an attorney, you let the attorney deal with them. If you don't have an attorney, oh boy, in 4 days, dear God. Okay. When you are dealing with a narcissistic attorney, and I have covered this in other videos. So if you want to go back and look at the videos that have to do with divorce, what to do in court, those type of things, you just go back through my list of videos. I mean, I've done this for years. I think it goes as far back as 6 years ago. So watch those videos. So what you want to do is know that narcissistic attorney is going to poke the bear. They're going to want you to start explaining yourself because that's what narcissists do. They want us to explain ourselves. They want us to talk too much. Attorneys love that. They want you to say more than yes or no. Don't do it. Don't do it. You keep your explanation to 2 words if you can. 1 is even better. Now, something else that attorneys will do, narcissistic ones especially, is they will ask a 2-part question that can be answered either yes or no. So one part of it could be a yes, the other part of it could be no. And then they'll get you. So what you do is you drink water. You have a water bottle. I don't have a water bottle. What do I do with my water bottle? Dear Lord. Anyway, so you have a water bottle with you, okay? And they ask the question. It's a 2-part question. You need to think. Take a sip of water before you answer. Put the water bottle down. I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. Could you rephrase that for me? And you do that as many times as you need to until it gets down to a yes or a no. Not a yes and a no. A yes or a no. Do you see where I'm going with that? And you do that. You take the sip of water after every question because that gives you seconds to think. That gives you a chance to slow the hell down and calm the inner child and formulate your answer. The less you say to the opposing counsel, the better. They are not your friend. You do not need to people please them. I have seen clients go into an adversarial situation and their inner child took over And they were so eager to please that person that they just could not shut the bleep up. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Oh my, you just lost the case because you talk too much. So that is the thing to watch out for. You do not want to say too much. You say exactly what is needed. You don't owe them an explanation for everything. A short, concise thing is what you want. You don't want to give them extra. And you don't want to fall into the trap of a two-part question, because then you'll say yes or no, and then they'll run with that and make you look like you're evil or this, that, and the other thing. If you feel you're being badgered and you are representing yourself, you can tell the judge, I kind of feel like I'm being attacked right here. You can. If the judge is not a narcissist, hopefully they'll tell that attorney to knock it the hell off. But basically, if you can, have an attorney represent you. I never recommend going up against a narcissist on your own, because the court is a country and a custom and manners in and of itself that the average person is not going to understand. So there's procedures, there's language, there's there's things that you do and don't do. And people forget their rights. If they're asking you something that is making you sound like you're guilty or something, you can always invoke your Fifth Amendment. I invoke my Fifth Amendment. I have the right to remain silent, So that's usually criminal cases, but you need to know your rights. You need to know, that you don't have to answer immediately. They're going to want you to answer immediately. Oh my God, yeah. And they're going to try to intimidate you. And they're working on that inner child like nobody's business. That's what I saw that one attorney do with the one that just suddenly, it was like, oh my God. So you got to prepare your inner child. You got to tell your inner child, you cannot, no, you little one, go play. Adult me has to handle this. And adult me is going to have to look this abuser, because most narcissistic attorneys are also abuser, in the eyes and just be like, nope, not today, Satan. Don't be intimidated by them. They think they're more powerful than they are. I had one ranting and screaming at me, threatening me, telling me he was going to yank my license unless I did exactly what he wanted. And I didn't. And I waited for him to, thank you, Mickey Mouse. I waited for him to yank my license. He never did, because he didn't have a leg to stand on. So, you cannot be intimidated by them. They will try and they will lie. That just because they're an attorney doesn't mean they don't lie. So, all sorts of crazy. So you be prepared to try, they're going to try to intimidate you. They're going to try to get your inner child to, just blah, 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 blah. No, you don't want that. So you keep it to one or two words, one or two sentences. That's it. You take a sip of water after every question so that you have time to compose yourself and decide how you want to answer that question. So that is the most important thing to remember. Okay. Can dad be overt narcissist and mom covert narcissist? Absolutely. It's any combination. It can be covert with a borderline, or a borderline with an overt, or overt with covert, or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes I will find that abusive parents, both of them have personality disorders. My dad was both borderline and narcissistic. I thought he was borderline at first. This is back in the day when I first started this whole thing. But he was both. He was both narcissistic over and a borderline. My mom was absolutely BPD. Absolutely, because her mother was a narcissist. My grandmother, oh, dear God. It's so funny because I will tell people how much I didn't like Bertha. She was the B letter, you know what I'm saying. And so people are like, oh, but she's dead. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead. And you know what my answer to that is? I dare the bitch. I dare her to show her ass up at my house at 3:00 in the morning, and I will give her an earful. Seriously, it's like, just because they're dead does not mean that they're now suddenly saints. When an abuser dies, they're still an abusive person. They're just a dead abuser. So anyway, there that is. Yes, it is possible to have any combination as parents. You betcha. What do I do about a colleague who I'm sure is disordered and has a thing for me? I have used very clear body language, and he is now creating situations, so we have to communicate. Go to your HR. Go to your HR. Just, I don't want this guy's attention. I've made it clear. And this person is still setting things up. I just want somebody to be aware of it because it is now becoming a hostile work environment. Now, unfortunately, HR is interested in protecting the corporation, and especially with this current administration, people are being less and less believed about abuse. So be aware of that. Body language is hugely important. But if somebody is really disordered, they're not going to understand. They're not going to get it. They don't want to. And of course, remember, they don't respect boundaries. You avoid them. Don't be in the situation where you have to communicate with them. Bring somebody else with you. Go to HR. These are all suggestions that you can do. All right. So, since this topic has come up, I think next week what we will discuss is preparing to leave, preparing to go to court. What do you've realized it's an untenable situation. You cannot stay with the abuser any longer. You might own a house with them, you might have kids, etc. What's your checklist to do before you let them know you're on the way out? Because you don't want to let them know until the very last second so that you can leave safely. So we're going to talk about how to prepare to leave. That's really what we're going to do. And we'll talk about some of the legal stuff and things like that. All right, my loves, you guys go have a great week. Take good care of yourselves. Drink plenty of water. It is going to be 114 this entire next week in Phoenix. Yay. Don't forget, I also, if you are outside of the country, I also do life coaching for people outside of the country. So if you are interested in working with me, just get a hold of me through my chrisgodinez.com website. And hope you guys have a great week. And I will talk to you later. Bye.